What if I told you one of the loudest guitar legends in American history didn't fall because he lost his talent? He chose to walk away from it. It started with a broken guitar, 5 strings, no case, left behind on an airplane like it didn't matter. But to a kid in Detroit in 1957, it meant everything. That kid was Ted Nugent. The moment he picked it up, something clicked. Not slowly, instantly. Detroit wasn't just factories and cars, it was loud in a different way. Motown Records was building a new sound, while blues players like John Lee Hooker filled the city with deep, hypnotic riffs. Nugent absorbed all of it. He copied everything he heard. Elvis Presley, James Brown, surf rock, blues, soul. If it had energy, he chased it. But talent wasn't the difference. Obsession was. He practiced until his fingers bled, then kept going, again and again until the sound matched what was in his head. By 12, he formed a band called the Royal High Boys. And this wasn't just for fun. They treated it like work, tight rehearsals, serious performances. Even then, Nugent wasn't trying to fit in. He was trying to win. Then came 1964, 14 years old, 60 bands competing. Most played it safe. Nugent didn't. Mid-solo, he jumped onto the judges' table. No warning, no plan, just instinct. The guitar screaming as the room froze, then exploded. They won, and the prize changed everything. He got to open for major acts in Detroit's biggest venues, at 14. But here's where it gets interesting. He wasn't just performing, he was studying. Bands like Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels caught his attention, especially guitarist Jim McCarty. His playing wasn't polished, it felt raw, dangerous. That became the blueprint. But wait, this next part changes everything. In 1965, his family moved to Chicago. New city, new scene. Nugent didn't slow down, he doubled down. He formed a new band and gave it a name that sounded like trouble, the Amboy Dukes. He didn't even know where the name came from, it just felt right. By 1967, they were back in Detroit with a record deal. Perfect timing. Rock was getting louder, heavier. Psychedelic sounds were taking over, and bands were pushing limits. The Amboy Dukes fit right in. Then came the breakthrough, Journey to the Center of the Mind. It hit number 16 on the charts. Radio played it non-stop. The band suddenly had national attention. But what if I told you the biggest hit of his early career didn't even come from him? Because Nugent didn't write the lyrics, and the meaning behind them would create one of the strangest contradictions in rock history. The song that made them famous was Journey to the Center of the Mind. It sounded like freedom, like exploration. Like stepping outside reality. But the truth behind it was something else. The lyrics were written by guitarist Steve Farmer, and they were filled with drug references, lines inspired by the psychedelic movement, and ideas pushed by figures like Timothy Leary. There was just one problem. Ted Nugent was completely anti-drug. No alcohol, no smoking, nothing. So while fans were treating the song like an anthem for getting high, the guy playing guitar on it didn't even agree with what it meant. Some say he didn't fully understand the lyrics at the time. Others say he just didn't care as long as the music worked. Either way, the contradiction was real. But it gets crazier. Behind the scenes, Nugent wasn't living like a rock star. He was running a business. He booked the shows. He fixed the gear. He drove the van. He handled the money. And while the band was partying, he was cleaning up the mess. Literally. There were nights he had to bail bandmates out of jail. Drug charges, fights, missed shows. While everyone else treated it like a non-stop party, Nugent treated it like a job that couldn't fail. That pressure started building. The Amboy Dukes became unstable. Members came and went. If you caused problems, you were out. No second chances. Nugent demanded discipline in a world built on chaos, and that created constant tension. But wait, this next part changes everything. By the early 1970s, the momentum faded. Psychedelic rock was dying. The charts were changing. The hits stopped coming. The Amboy Dukes stalled. And Nugent saw it clearly. So he made a decision most artists are too afraid to make. He shut it down. No slow fade. No dragging it out. He ended the band and bet everything on himself. New name, new identity, no safety net, just risk. In 1975, he teamed up with producer Tom Werman. The goal was simple: capture the raw energy of his live shows, and put it on record. No polish, no overthinking, just power. The result was his self-titled album, and at the center of it was a song that wasn't supposed to be special. Stranglehold. 8 minutes long, no real chorus. Just a slow, heavy groove that builds and builds. The kind of track radio usually avoids. But here's where it gets wild. The legendary guitar solo wasn't even meant to be final. It was recorded as a guide, just something to map out the structure. One take, no perfection, no overthinking, just feeling. Producer Tom Werman heard it and knew immediately. That was the version. They kept it. And somehow, against all logic, radio stations played it. Not just small stations, major ones. At a time when most songs were cut down to 3 minutes, DJs let the full 8-minute version run. Because it didn't sound like anything else. It felt raw, real, uncontrolled, and people noticed. But what if I told you the voice on that track, the one most people remember, wasn't Nugent's? Because the sound that made those songs unforgettable came from someone else. And without him, everything would start to change. The voice behind those early hits wasn't Ted Nugent. It was Derek St. Holmes. And that changed everything. Because while Nugent was the engine, the guitar, the energy, the force, St. Holmes was the melody, the balance, the part people could actually sing along to. You hear it clearly on tracks like Hey Baby, Just What the Doctor Ordered, and even parts of Stranglehold. That mix is what made the sound work.
Yes, I'm powering in between. I don't need no fancy tops, I need the ones that on the border. But this is just what the doctor ordered.
Without it, it would have just been noise. Together, it became something bigger. But it gets crazier. On stage, they didn't just play music. They turned it into a full experience. Shows were loud enough to feel in your chest. Nugent didn't stand still. He moved, jumped, attacked the stage like it owed him something. By the mid-1970s, the band wasn't just popular, they were dominating. In 1976, the album Free For All went platinum. And here's where it gets wild. During those sessions, Derek St. Holmes actually left the band, right in the middle of recording. So Nugent brought in a completely unknown singer at the time, Meatloaf, to cover multiple tracks. Think about that. An artist who would later sell millions of records was just a backup solution. The chaos didn't stop the momentum. If anything, it made it stronger. Then came 1977, Cat Scratch Fever. This was the peak. The title track became Nugent's only top 40 hit, reaching number 30. The album sold over 3 million copies in the United States alone. And live shows? They exploded. Nugent became one of the highest grossing touring acts in America. Not just in rock, in all of music. Right up there with Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones. But wait, this next part changes everything. The performances weren't normal, they were extreme. Nugent would come on stage wearing a loincloth, swing from ropes, fire flaming arrows across the stage. It wasn't just music anymore, it was theater. Wild, loud, unpredictable. Fans didn't just watch, they felt it. Every show pushed limits. And in 1978, all of that energy was captured in one album, Double Live Gonzo. It went triple platinum. Songs stretched far beyond their studio versions. Cat Scratch Fever turned into long, extended jams. Stranglehold became even more intense. For fans who couldn't see the shows, this was the next best thing. This was the peak. Over 30 million records sold out arenas, total control of radio and live music. For a moment, Nugent wasn't just successful, he was unstoppable. But what if I told you everything that made him rise was also setting up his fall? Because while the crowds were getting bigger, something behind the scenes was starting to break. And once it did, there was no fixing it. At the exact moment Ted Nugent reached his peak, the world around him started changing. Fast. The late 1970s were ending, and a new era was taking over. Punk arrived first. Raw, fast, stripped down. Then new wave followed, bringing synths, cleaner sounds, and a completely different look. And in 1981, everything shifted again with the launch of MTV. Suddenly, music wasn't just about sound, it was about image, short songs, clean production, visual appeal. And Nugent didn't adapt, he refused. While other bands changed their style, added keyboards, and made music videos, Nugent doubled down. Louder guitars, heavier sound, same wild stage act. What once felt powerful started to feel outdated. But wait, this next part changes everything. The real problem wasn't just the music, it was the band. Years of non-stop touring, hundreds of shows every year, started to take a toll. Living together, traveling together, performing constantly, the pressure built, and eventually, it broke. In 1978, both Derek St. Holmes and bassist Rob Grange left for good. The reason was simple: control. Nugent wanted full leadership, no compromises, no shared decisions. The others wanted something more balanced. It didn't work. And when they left, something important disappeared: the balance. Without St. Holmes, the melodic voice behind the biggest songs was gone. Nugent stepped in to handle more vocals himself, but it wasn't the same. The sound changed, and people noticed. The numbers told the story. Albums started charting lower. The 1981 live album Intensities in 10 Cities peaked at number 51. That's a massive drop from triple platinum success. New releases came and went without the same impact. Fewer radio hits, less attention. Critics started turning. What used to feel wild now felt repetitive. The loincloth, the arrows, the stage antics. It started to look like a routine instead of something real. And that might have been survivable. Artists lose momentum all the time and come back. But what happened next was different. Because Nugent didn't just face a musical shift, he made a personal one. By the late 1980s and early 90s, his public image started changing. Less about music, more about his voice off stage. He became heavily involved with the National Rifle Association and began speaking out more on political and social issues, and not quietly. Loud, direct, unfiltered. But what if I told you this shift mattered more than any album he released? Because the reaction was immediate. Radio stations that once played Stranglehold and Cat Scratch Fever began pulling back. Not because the songs changed, because the perception of the artist did. Program directors made a decision. The controversy wasn't worth the risk. And just like that, the same industry that helped build him started stepping away. Slowly at first, then all at once. The music didn't disappear, but the spotlight did. And once that happens, getting it back is almost impossible. The shift didn't happen overnight. At first, it was subtle. Fewer spins on the radio, less coverage in magazines, smaller mentions in the mainstream. But over time, it became clear. Ted Nugent wasn't just fading from the spotlight, he was being pushed out of it. And here's where it gets wild. His music hadn't suddenly gotten worse. Stranglehold still sounded just as powerful. Cat Scratch Fever still hit the same way. Nothing about the riffs had changed. But the man behind them had. By the 1990s, his identity was no longer centered on music. It was centered on his voice, his opinions, his appearances, his role in public debates. And that came with a cost. Mainstream platforms moved on. Radio stations replaced him with newer artists. Television ignored him. The industry that once promoted him now kept its distance. But wait, this next part changes everything. There's one place that represents recognition more than anything else in rock history: the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Nugent has never been inducted. Eligible since the year 2000, decades of influence, millions of records sold. Still no call. He believes it's because of his views, that his outspoken personality made him too controversial. Others argue it's more complicated, but the result is the same. An artist who once dominated the entire country left outside one of its biggest institutions. That absence became part of his story, part of his identity. And instead of stepping back, he leaned into it. He embraced the outsider role, framed himself as someone standing against a system that no longer supported him, and his audience changed with him. The arenas got smaller, the crowds more specific, No longer casual listeners, now dedicated fans. People who stayed through every phase, who didn't care about the headlines, who still came for the music. And Nugent adjusted. He kept touring, kept performing, still playing with the same intensity, still using his signature Gibson Birdland. Technically, nothing was lost. But the scale was different. Instead of dominating arenas alone, he shared stages with legacy acts like Styx and REO Speedwagon. Instead of leading the mainstream, he operated on the edges of it. And here's the part most people don't talk about. He chose this. Not directly, not in one moment, but step by step. Every decision pushed him further away from the center, until one day, the center moved on without him. Now, his legacy sits in a strange place. On one side, undeniable impact. A guitarist whose riffs shaped hard rock, songs that still trigger something instant when they start. On the other side, a public image that makes many people step back. And that tension never fully resolves, because the question keeps coming back. Can you separate the music from the man, or are they now the same thing? Today, Ted Nugent still steps on stage with the same intensity that built his name. The venues are smaller, the crowds are different, but the sound? Still loud, still sharp, still unmistakable. He plays the same riffs that once filled arenas, still holding that Gibson Birdland like it's an extension of himself, still attacking each note like it matters. And for the fans who stayed, it does. But here's the reality. The scale never returned. The mainstream moved on. New artists came in. New sounds took over. And the space Nugent once dominated became someone else's. Not because he couldn't keep up, because he chose not to. He didn't adapt to MTV. He didn't shift with trends. He didn't soften his image or change direction. He stayed exactly where he was, and the world kept moving. But what if I told you that's exactly why some fans respect him more? Because in a world where artists constantly reinvent themselves to stay relevant, Nugent refused. No compromise, no rebrand, just the same raw approach from the beginning. For some, that's authenticity. For others, it's the reason he disappeared from the top. And that divide is what defines his legacy. On one side, influence. Stranglehold is still studied by guitar players. That slow build, that control, that feel. It's not easy to replicate. Cat Scratch Fever still plays in arenas, bars, and playlists decades later. The music didn't fade. On the other side, controversy. A public image that grew louder than the songs themselves. And once that happens, it's hard to go back. Because people don't just hear the music anymore. They hear everything attached to it. But wait, this is the part that ties it all together. From a 5-string guitar found on an airplane, to selling over 30 million records, to standing outside the industry he once ruled. That entire path wasn't random. It was built on choices. Every step forward came from pushing harder than everyone else. And every step away came from refusing to change when everything else did. That's the full story. Not a fall caused by failure, a shift caused by direction. He didn't lose the ability to dominate. He changed what he wanted to dominate, and that changed everything. So now the question isn't whether Ted Nugent was great. That part is already decided. The real question is this: when the music and the message collide, which one lasts longer?